Thanks for joining in. This is Chris DiLorenzo with CMD, your CPA and trusted advisor. Today we're going to be talking about 5 common small business accounting problems that might be impeding your growth.
Everybody here is running a business, right? Even if you're a realtor, even if you're just a one-person shop and you're a consultant and you operate yourself out of your house, you're still running a business. So there's 5 common problems that I tend to see with a lot of businesses that I just wanted to share with you guys to make sure that you're not falling into these ruts, or if you happen to be in this bucket, that you realize it and you start kind of working towards getting away from it. So the first one is not using accounting software, or having it and not knowing how to use it, right? So every business, right, no matter how big or small, has accounting data, right? You need your accounting data to make your business decisions. You need your accounting data to do your taxes, right? So it's very important to be able to use an accounting system to be able to drive that information for you. I'm going to show you on the next slide a couple of different options that I recommend to a lot of people, but just know that having those types of things, how many realtors did I have in here? Right, okay, so third to about half. So how many people here know how much money you made last year? So about a third of that. So how many people just know just because you just started doing it versus you've been doing it all year?
What do you mean?
So how many people know today how much you made in 2019 in profit?
You're saying you didn't make that much?
No, in 2019. In 2019. So it's been about 30 days already in 2019. So now I'm down to about 2 people that know, right? So everybody should know, or should be able to know with relative ease, how much money you've made as your business, right? So if, for example, for the realtors, if you were going to advertise on Zillow, right, and Zillow is going to lump you into a contract that's going to cost you $1,500 a month, and you're going to have to sign it probably for 6 months unless they have a special on it, right? So how many people here know that they can do that or not, right? How many people have projections for how they're doing it? So I've got 2 so far, right? Of about 30 or 40 people in the room. So it's very important for you guys to have that. And accounting software is the start of where you're able to do that. The next part of it too is, well, now you have the accounting software, but you're not using it, right? So if you have accounting software and you're not looking at your financial statements at least monthly, if not quarterly, right, you're making a mistake, right? Because you're not operating a business, right? You kind of have a hobby that you're calling a business if you're doing it that way, right? You need to be able to pay attention to your financials so you know what's going on, and what you're able to do with it. Another general challenge, which kind of goes along with number 1, is you have numbers, at least you think you have them, but they're wrong, right? So obviously you can't make good, sound business decisions if you're operating off of poor numbers, because I think that's about what I made, or, hey, I forgot about all these expenses that, just came through, but I wasn't looking at it, right? So having numbers but wrong is just as dangerous as not having numbers at all. Another one, this one I want to spend just an extra minute on this one, because this one is super important for a lot of reasons. Mixing your personal accounts with your business accounts. Is there anybody here that doesn't have a separate business bank account for their business? Okay, good. So just for you, don't be ashamed, right? No worries. Happens a lot, right? A lot of times I find that. So there's a couple of major issues that come along with this. So in the first part of the presentation where I was talking about business entities and liability protection, there's a concept that the courts have called piercing the corporate veil. Anybody heard about that? Yeah. So what that means effectively is, if you were to get sued for something, a court could look at you and say effectively, you know what, there's no real difference between you, the person, and you, the business. So I'm just going to presume there is no difference. So now that LLC that you just spent those extra couple of $100 forming, and you thought you had a protection for you and your family, separating your business from your personal, because you didn't separate your bank accounts, because you were commingling your funds and they can't tell a difference between the two, you have the potential to lose that benefit. So super important, right, to not mix your business and your personal stuff. If you take one thing away from this presentation today, go find a banker and open up a business bank account today, right? I can get you some names if you need some. Get a business banking account, start separating it. The second thing of where that gets complicated, right, if you kind of couple that back with number 3, well, if you're mixing your business and your personal accounts, it's going to be a lot harder for you to make sure that you have the right numbers as far as your business is concerned. It's going to make it a lot harder for you to run your financial reports, because now you're going to have to spend a lot more time differentiating between what's personal and what's business. So again, make sure you separate your business accounts and your personal accounts. Last one, number 5 here, so just failing to manage your payroll. So it might not be relevant for most people here, but it's just something I wanted to bring up. If anybody here is an S corporation, this is relevant to you, right? And so really what I'm saying here is that the kind of the challenges with it. One, the reasonable compensation component too, right? So if you're running your S corporation, but you're not properly taking a reasonable compensation, or a compensation for that matter at all, right? You could be subjecting yourself to penalties and interest with the IRS for not properly filing. Similarly, if you don't take a large enough salary, the IRS can still come back and reclassify some of the things that you were considering distributions to yourself as wages. So very important to pay attention to that if you are running a payroll. So yeah.
Would you recommend the single member LLC to have like W-2s and pay yourself?
No, if you're a single member LLC, by default, you should not be running payroll. You'd only really be running payroll if you were an S corporation. So as a single member LLC, everything is coming through to you in distributions. You'll be making your estimated tax payments that way. You won't be running a payroll. Now, whether you should be a single member LLC versus an S corp, right, depends on what your business is, how many owners, how many other employees, people you'd be paying wages to would be, right?
But paying just to yourself is not worth doing, right?
Not if you're a single member LLC. In fact, you're not supposed to.
Oh, you're not supposed
Yeah, because not only, because if you, one, you're just not supposed to, but two, if you did, well then now you're having to pay that money to run a payroll, right? So you're paying at least $600, $50 a month at least, right, to run your payroll. Then you're gonna have, your payroll filings, right, that maybe you're paying for somebody to do, maybe you're doing them yourself, right? You'd have to then submit money at a regular basis to the state and to the IRS, similar to your estimated payments, but could be more frequently, just depending on how much money you're making, those types of things. So stay away from payroll unless you have to have payroll, right? And then you're also, the other part I forgot is you have to pay state payroll taxes, right? So as a single member LLC in Nevada, there's no state taxes that you're paying whatsoever, right? So you're not paying the modified business tax that you have to pay here. You're not paying, you don't have unemployment insurance, right? You don't have to pay workers' comp, right? So you avoid those types of expenses by not running payroll. So you'd just be incurring more for really no benefit to you at that point. So next we're gonna, I do have a little more here. So 2 more slides here on accounting. So first one I told you I was gonna show you a little bit about some accounting solutions. So I'm in favor of QuickBooks products. Just a disclaimer again, I am a certified pro advisor, so somewhat biased, but being in the accounting industry long enough, the QuickBooks products really are the best in the industry for what most people here are doing. And on top of that, I also recommend the ones in the cloud. There's so many better reasons to be in the cloud than it is to be in the desktop versions. Just to name a few. One, if you work with an accountant, right? Well, your accountant can see your stuff real time. You don't have to stop running your business for your accountant to be able to look at your data, because you have to download a file and then send it to him, and then wait for him or her to kind of go through it, then come back to you and say, oh, I need to do this, and you send it back and forth. You avoid all that, which is pretty important. Your data is accessible to everybody, right? Or not to everybody, but to whoever you give access to at any time. That's pretty important too, right? Like, so everybody here has a cell phone, right? You can manage your business on your cell phone. You can do almost everything in the app version of the accounting software than you can do on the desktop version. So definitely recommend the online stuff. This is a screenshot here of the QuickBooks Self-Employed app. This one isn't good for everybody, but it's probably good for several people in this room. So realtors, this is what I tell realtors to go to. It's super cheap, it's super it's super easy to use. Definitely recommend it. You can get it for, so I've got a link down here. Again, I'll send you guys a slide, right, if you shoot me an email.
$5 a month.
Perfect, there you go. So you can sign up for $5 a month for a year using the link down here. It's quickbooks.grsm.io/CMD. So when you sign up there, you get a year for $5 a month, so $60 a year, right, for the first year. I think after that it may double, but still, even at $120 a year, an accounting solution that's right there on your phone is super impressive. For realtors, a couple of cool things that are in here. There's your mileage log is right in this tool. So you don't need to worry about having another mileage app like MileIQ or a couple of the other popular ones out there. This one's native to your accounting software. So not only is it in one app for you, but it also makes the right calculations for you as it's determining your payments and your tax liability.
So I can get rid of Mile IQ now? I hate
You
that.
can.
I hate
Yep.
that app so
Yep,
much.
you certainly can. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and it's a pretty easy one. It functions somewhat similar to Mile IQ, where every time, like, so you came here from your home, right? Or your office, right? So it's geo-fenced in, so it'll know you took the trip when you log in there. You just swipe one way, you say it's a business expense, you came to see an education training, and then you have your miles logged, right? If you went to the grocery store, right, you just kind of swipe it as personal, right? So then that one goes away. So
is it compatible with Quicken if you have Quicken? I mean, would it?
it's a different tool.
Different?
It's a different tool, yeah. So a couple other things that you could do with this one too, that actually with both versions of QuickBooks. Oh, yeah.
Oh, quick question. Does
Yeah.
that version with the promo give someone like you, if you're my CPA, access as well?
No, you have to offer me access.
I have to offer you access.
Yeah, so there's a spot where, can you see it up? You probably can't see it too well, but there's a little spot that pops up here where you go into there and you can manage the users, and then you can
Okay,
invite an
add
account.
you.
Yeah,
So is Quicken the same as QuickBooks?
no, they're two totally different products.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Quicken it tends to be more for personal finance related, is what more people would use that for, whereas QuickBooks is more so for the business side of things. Personally, I actually use it for my personal stuff too, because it's just that easy, and it's good to have everything all in one spot. I don't use this version for it because it's not complicated enough, but the next one I'm going to show you in a second. In fact, I'll just show it to you right now. The QuickBooks Online version, as you can see, is pretty similar. The primary differences between self-employed and the fuller version of QuickBooks, well, one is cost, right? So it's a bit more expensive to get in this one. So, an entry point is about $35 a month for the Essentials version of QuickBooks Online. But it's worth it if you have a business that has those types of needs, right? So if you're tracking assets, right? So if you have if you're a manufacturer, or if you're selling products, right, and you need to maintain track of your assets, this would be the tool that you'd want to use for that. If you have more financial reporting needs than just a straight income statement for your taxes, this would be a much better tool for you to use. If you have multiple users, right, so in your question, Daryl?
Yeah.
So in your question there, what you can, with the QuickBooks Self-Employed, you can only use it for you, and your accountant can get in there. Whereas with QuickBooks Online, you could have multiple users in there. So if you have a little bit of a bigger business where other people need to be able to get into it, this would be the better tool for you. It also allows for payroll processing, right? So if you're on QuickBooks Self-Employed, you can't get into the payroll side here like you can with QuickBooks Online, at least with the QuickBooks payroll solutions, right? You could, of course, do other payroll solutions. You just can't get the more native version of QuickBooks Payroll, which is relatively inexpensive compared to other versions of payroll, and it integrates, so it makes less work for you or your accountant. And then also, one of the things, just a myth in my opinion that I hear a lot with QuickBooks Online versus desktop is I hear a lot of people say, well, QuickBooks Online can't handle what QuickBooks Desktop can. And that's just completely wrong for most people. For certain people, they may have a little bit of a leg to stand on, but the cool thing about this, just like the iTunes store, right, or the Google store, with all the apps that exist out there, well, there's tons of apps that feed right into the native QuickBooks platform. So even if QuickBooks isn't as strong in inventory management, for example, as QuickBooks Desktop is, well, you can get an app like SOS Inventory, add it right in, and then it's totally integrated into your system. So QuickBooks Online will function as your financial reporting hub.
Well, that's it for us today here at CMD. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe here to our YouTube channel so this way you're updated every time we post new content here. My information is presented here on the screen. Please make sure to also follow my blog at blog.cmdcpa.com, where you'll be able to subscribe to my newsletter and stay up to date with all matters relating to tax and accounting.